So a pet peeve I have, a pet peeve is being invited to a party and being told the theme. Wear white, I cannot stand that. Because you want us to look the same. Why would you want that?
When it comes to doing a proper introduction to you all, so I'll start from the farthest end. You just give us a little bit of an introduction of who you are and what you do. Is it okay?
Good afternoon. My name is Waithira Kibuchi and I am a fashion product development consultant. What I do is I work with both emerging and establishing fashion brands to help develop creative designs, articulate technical specifications, and develop product that is sellable in the most efficient way possible.
Sure.
Good afternoon, evening all. Shiro Waidaka, a creative. So we design many different things. So our brand is Anjiro, which launched in December last year. We've been around for a while, but now we're very passionate about sustainability in all we do.
Okay.
We'll share more as we talk.
Angela.
Hi everyone, my name is Angela Wanjiko. I am a creative designer and a multidisciplinary artist. I run the brand Hisi Studio, which is an inclusive brand that rethinks and includes the needs of visually impaired fashion consumers. And we're based out of Thika, and we're glad to be here to tell you our story around diversity and inclusion.
All right, thank you so much. And for us to get to understand why my panel is the right panel to have this conversation on fashion, design, sustainability, diversity, and inclusion, I just want to, maybe I start with you, Shiro. When somebody talks about sustainability, what should come in their mind? When you sit here and say, by the way, it is sustainability, fashion, design, sustainability that we're talking about, what should everybody that is seated down there think about?
Thank you for the question. This is my version. If it's good for planet and for people, otherwise it's just talk. There's a lot of what we call greenwashing. People say their brand is sustainable, but literally from how they make their product, the chemicals used in the product, to how they work with people, to the environment. We don't care enough about our environment, yet we put a tag saying sustainable. If you're not able to have the traceability as well, for example, quite a bit of our product, to be honest, we don't know the source of the fabric. That's not good enough, right? We currently import about 93% of our textiles, not just for fashion, into the market, which is not okay. We should be from farm to growing to production, but we're not thinking about who is the beneficiary of that product. Africa does not have the luxury of time. When we talk about job creation, even the person making the product will get jobs. But we're very quick to import fabrics. It's okay, but we're not thinking about why not actually grow it locally. How do we guarantee jobs right from the farmers? So for us, it is what it is at the moment, but it's not good enough. This morning actually on social media, we've now launched our pure silk scarves being done here. Again, we have the worms, we are weaving them by hand. It's a journey, but we're determined to change that 93% because it's not okay.
Yes. Let me come to you, Waithira. There's some question that I asked, but when you're answering that, kindly just put in what makes you tick when it comes to fighting for matter sustainability in fashion and design and the entire chain?
I think the most visible part of fashion tends to be what you see on the runways. Just the marketing itself. When people hear the word fashion, what they think about is what they see on the runways. But the truth is that the fashion industry is it's a multi-billion-dollar industry that involves so many people, from growing the cotton creating the fabric to making the clothes to distribution to retail, I think we have a tendency to fixate on just the top of the iceberg, but we really need to think about the impact that all this, what you're seeing on the runway has by the time it gets to the runway. I think that's not visible. And this is why I'm so passionate about this work, because by the time you get to wear what you're wearing now, the amount of energy and resources that have gone into that there's so much that has gone into it, and if you don't make that visible, then people don't understand the true value of what they're wearing and the things that they're consuming, and we need to start changing the narrative, because I think we're in a crisis now when it comes to the environment and climate.
Okay, and I'm going to come back to you, but let me bring in Angela here. Angela, you deal more with inclusivity. Let's start from that. When you say inclusion and diversity in the whole chain, when it comes to matters textile, fashion and design, when someone is listening to us, what are they supposed to think of?
So how I go about defining diversity and inclusivity is with the statement that diversity is a fact. Diversity is what nature offers us. It's what appears. We're all diverse. As people, as consumers of fashion, we're diverse. But inclusion is a choice. Inclusion is a choice because we pick from the diversity that is offered to us, and we choose to now bring it into our stories. So that's how I differentiate it.
Okay, diversity is a fact, inclusion is a choice. So let me get to sustainability, and I want to start with you, Shiru. In terms of making businesses that are in the design industry, where exactly does it start from when you talk about sustainability?
Many places, obviously, but for us, we look at it as if it's not going to create jobs and actual impact to communities. Again, it's just a statement. It's just a good to have, good to say. So, for example, people say we seem to be all over the place, but we do what we do to create jobs. Here on stage, very simple bag that we make with community groups, and literally these were just billboards. These are actually the Sakaja billboards, right? We don't consider this as raw material. Like I've talked about the 93% we import, yet we have waste, which is fabric. So we don't look at waste as a resource enough, and we should, because this makes really, really funky and durable bags. The campaign we're running is you buy one, you donate one for school kids, but it's a really trendy bag. We look at tires, now we're using tires in shoes, we've started making shoes. Again, people burn their tires, why? Climate change is real, it's a crisis, okay? Just a couple of months ago, everybody was saying how hot it was. People's grass was burning, people couldn't stand outside. Children couldn't walk to school, not just because of the sun. The ground was too hot for them to walk on. So we're now using tires to make school shoes. So these children can actually walk to school. It's that bad. I saw once on social media somebody's shoes actually melted, right? It's that hot, it's that serious. But think about the children who walk to school barefoot. It's that bad, right? When we talk about, like now we've made these products and they're pretty cool, our next thing is, but what about the dye? Why don't we use natural dyes, right? So you have to go back again. What is the actual thing being used? Our stand is the Mabati structure at the end. We have a shop there. A lot of the products we are making are very, very sustainable, from our furniture. If you look at our sofas, we're now going and getting what is considered waste textiles and turning that into product we can use for upholstery. So it's about looking around the waste we have, but as a resource, not because it's trendy. It's because it creates jobs, number one, cleans the environment, number two, and number three, it's the right thing to do. Yeah.
But she mentioned something important, turning waste into something profitable. How do we make people in the industry look at textile waste and say, I can make something out of this instead of harming the environment at the same time?
Sadly, it's a personal choice, and that's the tragedy of the industry, right from fashion to it. It's you yourself, yeah? It's you and what you care about. Bless Wangari Maathai, she cared about the environment, and a lot of people scorned her and everything, and now we quote her every day. It's a personal journey, but we hope that if one then sees the importance, they wake up to it, and then we pass it on. Because collectively, we're finishing our country, we're finishing the planet, right? But I keep repeating, this is not because the UN has said, it's not about the SDGs, it's because it's the right thing to do. If we're going to create jobs, we can't be affording to import fabric. It's impossible. Therefore, then we don't have product. I know there's one of the EPZs I was chatting with here yesterday, and all their fabric comes from outside. How is that okay, right? And then unfortunately, you find a lot of the waste fabric in our rivers, unfortunately. And the ink or the dyes they've used, let me not even say. So we have to stop thinking about it only as plastics. Even textile waste is bad. How we produce, the women or the men who work in the factories, we are actually harming their skin because we're not thinking about what is the product they're touching. So for us, we care about people. That's why brand Anjiro is a clan, but it's about people and planet.
Right. Let me come to you. When someone is seated here, they want to go to purchase when it comes to a product, why should they care about sustainability? In terms of looking in, a designer could actually say, okay, I want to make one that is good for the planet and all that, and this is sustainable in terms of the material that I'm using. But somebody who wants to buy goes to a shop and they look at something and say, this one looks cool and it's going to look good on me. Why should they care that it's going to last or not?
Because the impact is there, whether you're aware of it or not. I'll give you an example. I think we talk a lot about fast fashion, which is buying more, producing and buying more clothes more often. So our trends that used to have 2 seasons in a year. They used to have 2 seasons in a year. But what happens now is that a company like Zara has drops every 2 weeks. They have, I think, about 24 collections a year, which when you think about it is crazy. I think there's emphasis on continuous growth from the companies that doesn't make sense, because what happens because then they have to meet their revenue targets. They have to constantly keep producing. The only way to get you to come back into the store and buy something after you were in there last week is to offer you something that seems different, that looks different, something that's new. But when you really look at the clothes that you have in your closet, all that stuff that you're buying very cheap, it doesn't last long, and ultimately it doesn't serve you. What ends up happening is that you accumulate a lot of clothes. Some of the fibers that are being used in the clothes are practically not good for you, so you're having a lot of recycled fabric, which is made out of polyester. And there's some studies that are coming out now that are showing that our skin absorbs microplastics from these fabrics, and some of these microplastics have been found in the brain. So, you wonder what is the impact of that on you, what's the impact of that on your children. Some other longer-term impacts include what they are saying now. They're saying that fertility is declining at a rate of 1% per year, which is really crazy when you think about it. And so even just for your own well-being, sustainability is something you should care about. You should care where your clothes are coming from. You should care who's making those clothes. Because if the person who's making those clothes is being exploited, that's probably someone from your community who can't pay their rent, or they can't support their children because they're being exploited by the industry. These rivers that we are talking about, we are constantly complaining some areas don't have water. But why don't they have water? We think about sustainability as a thing that's happening out there, but we don't realize that these are the effects that we ourselves are already feeling. We don't connect the two, but the two are very related, and we need to, as consumers, we need to start paying attention.
Thank you, folks, for that. I believe if you're seated in the audience, you're looking at it and you're like, okay, so when I go to buy my next piece of cloth, I need to have so many things in mind so that the future generation, because somebody made some maybe good or bad decisions, and that's why you're here. So let me come to you, Angela. The concept of we have fast fashion and we have slow fashion. Fast fashion is what she actually says, that clothes are produced maybe on a weekly basis. This is trending today, this month. Next month we have something else that is trending. Back in the days, some people could argue and say there's one trend at a time. This year, this is what is trending. Next year, we have something different. So with that, maybe we're taking care of the environment. Now, I want to look at something and say, how do we change the mindset of people from where you sit to get to adopt the concept of slow fashion as opposed to fast fashion?
I think we start here. We start with the message we've been told by both Waithera and Shiro. We start here by having these conversations where we're now made aware of the impact that it's having on our environment, the impact that it's having on the people who work in the factories, ourselves as consumers. So we first start with education and raising awareness to consumers. So with that, consumers are now able to make a choice as they shop. So we create a demand for slow fashion. We create a demand for organically made clothing. So that then boils down to planting the cotton, having it produced in the country. So once we create demand, then we'll be able to work towards developing slow fashion that's now timeless, that we're not throwing away, that will endure through seasons and carry us through many, many wears.
Okay. How important is sustainability for you?
Important, of course. Sustainability is important because, especially when it counts for people, because you've said it's people and planet. So especially where it counts for people. And how I look at sustainability is in 3 scopes. That's economic sustainability, environmental sustainability that we've talked about, and then social sustainability. It's what she's mentioned about, it's your neighbor who's struggling to pay rent because they're employed at a factory that does not pay them fair wages. We're looking at making sure that once we pay fairly, then there's more money in our economy and more people are able to educate themselves, get things for themselves and their families. So we uplift households as well. And I think socially, I want to also break it down to culture, because to design sustainably is also to consider heritage. And if you look at fashion and textile and design, it's one of the tools that can be used to pass down culture and heritage. So having that in mind as we create allows for our heritage to also live through generations. So that's another way to look at sustainability, and that matters to me, and it also matters to our brand, Hisi Studio. So our current collection focuses on, let me say, my explorations around my culture, which is Gikuyu, and I do hope to also explore other cultures and in a way be able to tell stories that will live beyond myself and our brand. Yeah.
Some God. Okay, so let me come to Shiro. In terms of challenges, because one thing we'll say we need to create, sustainability when it comes to design, but we have a consumer for things that are not sustainable. So what are some of the challenges that a design-led business will look at and say, or rather, that will wish to start practicing sustainability or, employing all this that we're talking about face along the way?
I think every business has a challenge. The difference is we don't communicate enough, right? So to make your consumer, customer, internal customer as well, who's the people who work with you, aware, you must communicate the why. Go to the communities, find out, show people. A lot of times we come up with ideas, sat in rooms, we don't actually go out to see the river that used to be there, is not there anymore. We don't go out and see what pollution is actually doing. Unfortunately, I was speaking to a school the other day, and they have an environment club, but the same school also burns lost property uniform. And this is it's a government school, but they burn clothes that are unclaimed. I'm like, why would you burn clothes fast as a school? Yet the school is also trying to raise money. so we do things, like I said, we burn tires. Why would we burn tires? There's things we do without thinking, which is wrong. The same way you can be walking or driving behind somebody and they'll throw a bottle out of the car. So it's really bad manners, first of all. But number two, we need to talk about it more, like she said, it's how we start now. But most of us, even this event here, are not aware, are not conscious. What are we touching? What are we doing with the teacup, the water bottle we have, etc. And for us, it's literally a matter of life or death, period, right? Like the group we work with who makes the bags with us, it's a women's group in Babadogo near Korogosho. And if you go to the Dandora dump site, I don't know how many of us have actually even gone to see where the waste we generate goes from home, office, to fashion waste. If you go to that dump site, it even self-combusts. The stuff in there is so toxic, right? Yet these are the people we say we're empowering. We can't possibly be empowering them while still killing them. So the idea is create stuff that doesn't have to go into the dump site in the first place. There's nothing wrong with where they live. What is wrong is with what we dump where they live. So businesses need to start being literally more self-aware, but self-aware is not self, but community. Go out and see the devastating effects of what we're doing to people. Otherwise, your business doesn't make sense. And once you start doing that, communicate it and you'll see customers will come. Because fundamentally we care as humans, right? Profit is good, but there's no profit without planet, period. And to have planet, you need people.
An interesting quote there, but I'll also like to, bring it back to competition. In different businesses do have competitions. So if we look at, for example, I have a fashion house and I'm designing clothes, but mine is not friendly to the environment. And she has hers, and she's doing the same thing. Mine are cheaper, maybe because of the material I'm using, other expensive. How does then it become a collective responsibility for everybody involved in this production process to actually be mindful of this product that they're actually producing?
I'm not so sure I understood, but there'll always be competition, there'll always be a cheaper price, more expensive price. Like I said, at the end of the day, it's a personal choice. As the founder of the business, it's a personal choice. You can either care about the environment or you don't. And unfortunately, the way the world is going, the consumer decides. It doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter if your price is rock bottom. The consumer decides, and the consumer cares. They will not touch your product. They'll buy the more expensive one because they can see the why, right? Cheaper doesn't always mean good. Yeah, so there's a space for that, but the world is changing. People are very, very aware now, and they want to know who made this, how was it made, and not just in story, because people can find out, right? It's a simple Google search. It's very easy. So we need to be more not about what's my competition and price. It's not a price game anymore. It's about, are we protecting our own? We can say price can come down once you have volume, but what are we compromising or sacrificing for price? At the end of the day, somebody somewhere will suffer for that in the planet. And I don't think we should be doing that anymore.
Can it be a collective responsibility of then every designer to just say, this is the kind of product we as a country need to be producing, and we are not going to to drop the standard. We are setting a standard, nothing below this, so that whatever is coming out, whether somebody decides to buy from me or from Angela or from Shiro or from you, is actually the same thing in terms of the material that's actually being used, or sustainability and friendliness to the environment.
Yes, I do think there's a collective responsibility. It might not be as formal as you might want it to be. I believe that this has more to do with the values that we have as a society, because the designers are coming from us. And if I am willing to sacrifice anything just so I can get paid for payday, when I become a designer, nothing is going to change. I'm going to cut as many corners as I can to get to that payday. So I think there's a larger conversation here about the values of our society. These values, consumption values that we've adopted, that I don't believe were ours originally. I think as Africans, we've always been very sustainable. We didn't call it sustainability, but we thought, or maybe I thought, that we were like that because we were poor. When you buy something, like I come from a family of 6 children, and so what my elder sister wore was worn all the way down to my younger sister, and even to my brothers, if it was unisex, if the colors. Anyway, so we thought that was because you were poor, and now that we have more money, we want to signal our wealth by the things that we are buying, by how constantly we are making new purchases. I think the internet might have made it worse because you don't want to be seen at 2 events wearing the same thing. But really, I think what's happening now just speaks to our collective values as a society, and there's no way for me. We have to start changing the narrative. I think there's also a role to be played by the kind of communication that designers are putting out. I think there are brands out there that are very sustainable, but they don't brand themselves as sustainable brands because it's just the DNA of what they do. But because they are not visible, then we look around and we say, where are the sustainable brands? So I think there's also something to be done around communication.
You mentioned something in terms of you coming from a family of 6, and I was thinking to myself when I was young, I was telling my sister, you see, when I grow up, most of the clothes that I have are going to be worn by my son. And she was like, why would you do that to your son? Trends would have changed and things with that. So I think I was very fashion conscious and environment conscious at a young age with that. Let me come to you, Angela. My last question is on matter of sustainability before we move to inclusion and diversity. When you look around, do you see any emerging technologies in the fashion industry that will actually change the way we practice sustainability?
Yes, there are quite a number, and technology is here. It's here to stay, and it's mostly here to help towards ensuring that we're more sustainable. You could talk about technologies like virtual and augmented reality. It's the filters that we're having online that allow us to try on a dress from far away. You're not in the store, but you're able to try on a dress. That reduces the fuel consumption that would take you to a store, and it reduces so many things around energy waste. In terms of production, you could talk about pattern making. There's technologies around pattern making that allow you to sample a dress, sample a garment, and this reduces waste in production before production is done. There's so many things we could talk about. It's endless. It's really, really endless. And
so we have a future when it comes to practicing sustainability in fashion and design.
Yes, with technology in hand, we do have a future, a promising one.
Okay, yeah. Then it's not all bad, so we are looking forward to something good. All right, I want us to get to our second topic, and that has to do with inclusivity and diversity. I'll start with you, Angela. Why is it important to have inclusivity and diversity in fashion and design?
I think the importance is dictated by our being. We come in different body types, we come in different sizes, in different gender, ability. So ourselves being diverse, it then necessitates that we produce products that fit everyone, that are custom to everyone, that suit every need.
Okay.
Yes.
What you do at his studios, why that? Where did that come from for you?
So we are centered around disability inclusion, and as I'd mentioned, we're based in Thika. And having grown up in Thika, we have one of the largest institutions. We have many institutions for persons and children with disabilities. And I think with where you grow up, it influences who you become. It's what you see. So for me, growing up, I saw disabled children. I got to interact with them. And by the time I wound up in my 4th year at uni, I was thinking about how design would best apply to the people I interacted with. Is design helpful? Is design functional? Does design alienate? So I was looking towards including people, especially with disabilities. So that's where we started from. So asking the question, how do visually impaired persons interact with fashion? Yes, we make wonderful prints, flowers on our kitenges. We have amazing scarves with prints and everything, but for a visually impaired person, they're not able to connect with that print. It means nothing. It's just another flat thing. So it necessitates that we create a garment that they can interact with, that they can have a wholesome fashion experience. So for us, that meant adding tactile detail and even braille into them. So braille phrases that they can actually read and interact with, as well as integrating technology that allows them to scan our clothes, and from the scan QR, they're able to get all the details just from their mobile phone, and it's that easy. So inclusion is not a big topic that we cannot handle, but it's just small details that make a world of difference.
Well, okay. On this particular subject for inclusivity in design, why should designers, care about it and say, okay, when I'm making a product, I need to have this and this in mind for people who are living, are able differences without it?
Because inclusion makes business sense. Inclusion means profit. I think the largest thing that happens when it comes to diversity and inclusion is that there's this sort of cycle where you don't see the people. So I think Wanjiko came into this work because she'd interacted with people with disabilities since she was a child. But for a lot of us, we don't come from such environments. We probably come from able-bodied families. And the only time you start thinking about such things is if someone in your family or someone that's close to you maybe gets into an accident and they have to use a wheelchair, or someone loses their hearing. And then, if you're in these spaces where you're not interacting with people who are different from you, then you think that these people don't exist, but they do. A very huge percentage of people are not able-bodied. What does able-bodied even mean? This is not a state that you are where, like Brian, you're able-bodied and we've written a verdict. Anything could happen. We've had stories of, I've had stories of women who, when they got pregnant, had to make all sorts of adjustments that were never an issue for them before. I think visibility, just making this visible makes such a huge difference. And you should care about it because these are real people who will need to get clothes, they need to get accessories, they have to attend events, they are people, they need to live their lives, and if your products are helping people to live their lives, then I don't see why this is not something we should consider.
Right. Shiro, let me come to you on this one. When we talk about diversity and inclusivity, the two of them have spoken about in the fashion industry. Now this is the final product, but where does it start from, just in the whole chain?
I think it's just in understanding, being aware, but being cognizant that we are all different. So a pet peeve is being invited to a party and being told the theme, we are white, I cannot stand that. Because you want us to look the same. Why would you want that? Invite us to the party to be the best, to come as the best version of who we are. I actually start sweating and sometimes don't attend. Because I'm like, why would you want us to literally come looking the same? We are not the same. We should be celebrating our uniqueness. If you want to come dressed as a peacock, maybe come dressed as a peacock. So it starts from things like that, okay? School does it for a reason, fine. But after that, allow people to be, yeah? And then I think you bring the best out of the human being. When we insist it must be this and this, why? The world is so diverse. We have individual personalities, even as family members. And if we're not even going to acknowledge our own friends and family as individuals, then it's very difficult to run an inclusive business, because you're trying to make people be a certain way, look a certain way, walk a certain way. And you see people struggle. When you allow people to be the best version of them, then you get the best version of the person. So for me, it goes that deep. Allow people to be. I love it's happening now with natural hair. Now we can wear natural hair. properly. Before we'd be straightening it with all sorts of things, right? So that's happening more in your, let's say, like the hair industry. But I'm telling you, fashion, I don't know why we're stuck in, if it's a collection, this allow people to add, and I love what she's doing. You can add things to it, you can be, I don't know, wear black this season or ever, right? So allow people to be, and the mindset has to be there in the business owners.
Thank you. Angela, let me come to you. In terms of challenges and obstacles, this is something that you're trying out and maybe a lot of people have not ventured into it. What would you say has been the biggest challenge that any designer and an entrepreneur in the fashion and design business that is seeking to do what you do will actually come to face?
Okay. So the challenge comes in around, especially in creating for diversity, is when you're the outsider. So if we're talking about disability, as I am, I would qualify myself as not visually impaired. So the challenge that presents to me as I try to create for that group is in understanding their pain points. I might be an expert in braille and whatever else around visual impairment, but I have not lived the experience of the users. So that means that I would need to apply myself to go and have sessions with visually impaired persons, get to learn what their world looks like. So the biggest challenge for creating for diversity is when you're the outsider and you need to apply yourself within that field. If you're looking at size inclusivity, as a designer, I'd be biased to create for my size because I look like this, I've lived like this, so I know the pain points for my size. So I'd be challenged to now create for someone who is in a bigger size. So I think the main challenges are around empathy and also our biases, the ones we've lived with and the ones we don't even know we have.
All right, I believe I'm out of time, but I'd like to give you just a few seconds to give your final remarks on all this conversation, especially on inclusivity and diversity. Let me start with you, Heather.
I think my final comments would be to echo what someone on one of the earlier panels had mentioned, because it's also coming from our discussion now. Sustainability is not a thing that's over there that you bring into your business. It's a way of life. It's a mindset. It's the way you do your things. I don't believe, like to give an example, coming off of what Wajiko has just spoken about, offering larger sizes does not necessarily need to make you a sustainable brand. It does in our world, but really what you're doing is just offering sizes to anyone who wants to buy from you, you know. So it's not a frill, it's not a special thing, it's not a trend, definitely not a trend. I think we think of it as a trend, but for it to have any impact, for us to make real change, it has to go into the way we think about everything that we do. Before you buy, do you really need to buy that piece? Could you make do from what you already have? And if you're buying, can you buy something that's been made properly so it lasts you longer, so you don't have to buy again in a long time? And yeah, we do have to think about it in terms of values, and then everything else we do comes from that.
Sure. Final remarks.
Sometimes I wish we could just press pause, slow motion, and look at what we're doing. Look at what we're doing to people, what we're doing to the planet. And I think we'd be so ashamed, so ashamed. So I feel businesses just need to press pause. Yes, we need to be making profit, but we are also the bad people. So sometimes we need to step back, look at what we're doing, and apologize to the world, literally apologize to the planet, and do it differently, but be intentional, be practical. Don't do it just because we're in such a delicate place, at least as a continent. And if we're literally not putting people first, we will not be here to enjoy whatever it is we're making. That's all I can say.
Angela.
I'd say that people matter, And we are the ones to make people matter by the choices we make. When we appreciate diversity and celebrate it, we are able to now push the fashion industry forward. We're able to celebrate your neighbor, we're able to celebrate your teacher, we're able to celebrate each other. And we make a conscious choice, then sustainability will have a place in the business that we're doing. Something else I'd like to challenge us as we go back home and to our businesses is, if you look around the room you're in and everyone looks like you, then you have to ask yourself a question. Why does everyone look like me here? What choices are we making? So let's make choices that center on people, choices that center on the planet.
All right, thank you so much. I do appreciate your time. And for making time for this conversation here. It was an awesome one. I wish we had more time, but we don't. Thank you. All right, thank you so much for listening to us. That does it for us here in this particular conversation. My panel, I had Angela from his studios, Shiru from Anjiru, and Waidera from Kipuchi Creative. Thank you so much.